So I want to thank everybody for being on the call with us today and welcome you to our Improving Accessibility with AI session, facilitated by instructional designer Wes Shipley. Wes works with us as an instructional designer, providing a lot of support, and specifically, he's been working a great deal on accessibility efforts and also understanding how we could leverage AI in those efforts. So I'm going to turn it over to Wes. If you would like to use the chat to ask questions, I'll keep an eye on that. But also, please feel free to interrupt Wes at any time and ask follow-up questions or ask about something because he wants to make sure he's providing, quick answers if you have questions. We've got a lot to cover, so we'll go ahead and begin. And yeah, that's it for me. Thanks again for being on the call. Take it away, Wes.
Awesome. Thank you all for being here. I really appreciate it. And I hope that I'll give you some helpful tools today to address moving specifically forward with alt text, but there's some other useful things in here that I think you might speed up your workflow a little bit. Gene, I wanted to ask real quick, is the website WordPress based?
Yes.
Cool. So a lot of the things we're talking about today, I believe that you can do similarly in WordPress. I'll show it in the LMS, but I believe that the way you apply alt text in WordPress, if I remember correctly, should be fairly similar. So hopefully this will work pretty cleanly for you as well.
Okay, great.
Awesome. Let me get started. Give me one moment. Excellent. And can everyone see my screen all right? Excellent. Cool. So today we're going to be talking about AI and accessibility, two very interesting topics. And we know that there's some accessibility requirements upcoming, and I do believe that there's some AI tools that are going to be able to help us meet those needs pretty efficiently. So today we're going to be talking about LLMs or large language models. You'll probably have heard about LLMs before. You've probably used them. We're going to really briefly cover large language models and give you two hopefully helpful and interesting tips for using them. We're going to briefly discuss some ethical considerations when using AI for accessibility in an educational setting. There are plenty of ethical issues when it comes to AI, but we'll be specifically talking about it in our setting. We're going to explore AI tools that improve accessibility, including alt text generation, text to speech, OCR, which means optical character recognition, and captions. And then finally, we're going to learn to apply AI-driven accessibility tools in real-world scenarios. So you'll be able to apply, in the middle of this, you're actually going to try to create alt text from an image in your course. And Gene, you could probably pull an image off of the website and see if you can run it through, and we'll see what kind of results you get as we do that. Starting off, what is a large language model? I do want to mention, as I'm going through here, if there's something you don't understand, if I'm not making sense, if I'm going too quickly, the best way to slow me down is just to ask me questions. Let me know if you've got something you're concerned about, or if I'm not making sense, or I'm moving too quickly. Either pop one into the chat, or just jump on and interrupt me. That's totally fine. I hope that this is a resource for you, so if you've got any questions as we go, please let me know. What is a large language model? The complicated definition of a large language model is mathematically an LLM is a probabilistic model that estimates the conditional probability of a token, which is a word or subword, given its preceding context. It's a really complicated way of saying that large language models are an autocomplete system. If you're familiar with autocomplete on your phone, if you're texting somebody and it starts to fill in the rest of the data, large language models do that in a really complicated way. That's important because it's kind of like when you start thinking about lunch and, you're getting hungry and you're thinking about, "Oh, what am I going to have for dinner?" And you start thinking about pizza. I love Acropolis pizza. That is like one of my favorite meals in the whole world. So if I start thinking, a little after lunch, what do I want for dinner? I want some pizza. I want Acropolis pizza. I'm already putting together the toppings in my head. And then I get off work and I call my partner and she wants tacos. I can try to switch to tacos, but really my heart is set on Acropolis pizza. Autocompletes in large language models are similar. Once you've put in a prompt, they're going to be so far down on autocomplete process for that, they are wanting pizza for dinner. They're wanting whatever that original prompt set them in motion to do, and it's really hard to switch them to a new train of thought. It's hard to get them from pizza to tacos. So, whenever you're doing something in a large language model and it's not working out the way you hope, start a new chat window. I've gotten to where I repeatedly, instead of trying to argue with it or push it in a different direction, just close it and start a new window. It's going to work so much better for you. It's going to be so much quicker. Just try to get it started off with your prompt at the beginning. And sometimes even similar prompts in new windows will end up in new directions just because of the way the autocomplete collapses in different directions. There's a level of randomness to it. So if it's not working the way you hoped, start a new window. We're going to be talking about prompting, and you've probably heard about prompting a good bit. There are four major points to using a prompt in our particular context today. One is defining a role or context. The autocomplete system really likes to know who it is. It gives it a lot of context for being able to answer your question. You want to give it a task or instruction, and y'all are going to be naturally good at this. You can pull on your Bloom's taxonomy, use those action verbs. What do you specifically want it to do? You want to define the level of complexity, meaning do you want this to be PhD level, college level? You can even say community college level, and sometimes that will shape it a little bit. Third grade level, so you can give the level of complexity you want out of it. And then you've got to give it some constraints. Do you want a 100-word essay? Do you want a table? You got to tell it what you want it to look like. A final way of extracting a little bit more processing power out of a large language model, specifically a free version, is after you've run your prompt, ask, are you sure? It will cause the large language model to reconfigure and rethink about the data that it pulled together, and it can get you a little bit of extra processing power, specifically if you're using free versions. If you're using higher end versions, you're probably not going to do this as much, but the freer versions are usually older, less processing power based versions of them. So this "are you sure" at the end of a inquiry can be a way of getting a little extra processing power out of there. We're going to talk about some ethical considerations. So there are a lot of ethical considerations. Three main ones are copyright and intellectual property issues, potential over-reliance on AI, and I've got potential biases, but we know there are definitely biases to it, and then privacy concerns with AI-generated data. And I'm curious if I can hear y'all chime in. What are your major concerns about AI?
I mean, just the movies that I've seen and the takeovers that occur with if I'm being completely honest, it's really what it is it's a lack of understanding in terms of like just listening to you talk, like there's all this stuff going on the other end that I don't understand as a user. So it's really the unknown, I guess.
For sure, that makes a lot of sense. My car scares me in a similar way. It's all magic. I mean, I wish I knew how the thing worked, because then I might be able to fix it. The thing's magic to me. I have no idea. But an AI is similar. I think even the people who are really working on it at a high level are still pretty surprised at the way it works. I don't know that we really have a true insight into how the complexity of the thing is able to produce what it's able to produce. And there are definitely a lot of different AI future movies. Is it going to be The Matrix or Minority Report? May I have one more? Is there one more AI concern out there?
I have concerns around intellectual property and how AI might be compromising people's intellectual property.
For sure. There's a lot of what have these giant models been trained on, and if they pulled a ton of stuff off the internet, have people had any say in whether or not their data is in there, and even the way we currently use it, is it using our data? They're very valid concerns.
I would have
Uh,
one more that I would just bring up if that's okay.
totally. What's that, Andy?
I think that people like me, because we don't understand how it works, assume that it's right. And so I really appreciate it. And I made a note about the "are you sure" command that you suggested. That's something I had not yet tried.
For sure. Yeah. And it's a really one of the things we'll talk about when we get into the alt text thing is you have to be really careful because I heard it described recently, AI is like a enthusiastic intern and it doesn't want to be embarrassed by being wrong, and so it wants to please you, so it will say something confidently that it has no idea if it's correct or not. And often, in a way, what is it in grad school? They teach us how to sound, confident about things. It kind of uses that type of language to sound like it knows something, and it can hallucinate things, but say them really confidently. So you have to like really pay attention to the stuff it puts out because it'll sound right often. So paying attention to is it actually correct or is it hallucinating? That's a very valid point for sure. One of the main ethical issues that concerns us in this setting is fair use determination, pulling on what Sarah said, intellectual property rights, thinking about are we okay to pull images out of our textbooks to put them into AI to get this alt text out of it? Is it okay that we do that? And fair use is complicated and it's always a balancing act. Ultimately, the determination of fair use is going to be it's a scale of was this fair use or was it not? And there's kind of a like balancing act that you have to do. There's really not a just clear, set of answers. So for fair use determination, what's looked at is the purpose and character of use. We are protected in academia for using things in educational settings, so that pushes it towards the fair use side that we're using it in an educational setting. There's an element of transformation. If you're turning a picture into text, you've changed the thing significantly. That's part of the fair use determination as well. The nature of the copyrighted work, and I don't know how I feel about this as an academic, but generally factual work is considered to be more fair use and creative work is not considered to be fair use. So that also kind of helps us in our world. The amount and substantiality of the portion used, was it a part or was it the heart of the thing? Did you put the entire textbook in there and have it summarize it? Or was it a couple of images out of the textbook? And then the effect on the original market value of the work. Do they still have to buy the textbook in the future, or has your changing of the textbook over into text prevented people from buying it in the future? I think all of that is kind of on our side when thinking about our use of AI in an educational setting. Being able to use it for alt text, I would say that it seems pretty safe. We're going to be talking about the standard that we're going to need to meet is the WCAG 2.1 AA, and WCAG is the Web Content Accessibility Guide, and you can look it up, and there are a lot of different requirements on there. Most of those requirements do not really pertain to your daily work. Most of those requirements are going to be related to the actual coding and web design of the website. Gene, there's actually a lot of the WCAG will relate to your work that doesn't to faculty, which is kind of an interesting element to this because you kind of get into some of the coding and CSS and the how buttons work. There's some more elements to it that you'll that will impact you. But for the most part, the WCAG, we're going to be talking about there are four main elements. Um, Perceivable, operable, understandable, and robust. Mainly what we'll need to address is the perceivable element, making sure that people are able to perceive the data that we're giving them and not be invisible to any of their senses. And so if you it can make sure you can see the information as well as hear it, then that will help ensure that you've got multiple ways of perceiving the document, and that will help cover you with the WCAG 2.1 AA requirement. In order to make things perceivable, the main guidelines underneath that element are using text alternatives, which we'll be talking about today for non-text content, images, or audio. With time-based media that's using captions, I've got captions turned on our Zoom call now. Modern captions, thanks to AI, are really strong. They're not perfect, and nothing with AI is, but they're really strong. Adaptability, ensuring web content is adaptable without losing meaning. This kind of comes into Gene's world. Whenever you collapse it down to a mobile device, does it still function? And distinguishable. And that kind of relates to color contrast and text size, which we'll be addressing with a tool here shortly. There are a couple different AI applications that we're going to be talking about today. I'm going to show you some accessibility checkers. We're going to spend most of our time on alt text generation with AI, and I'm actually going to have y'all try to do at least one image and we can talk about it. There's a handy contrast checker tool that's not necessarily AI, but I want you to see it because it's just super helpful. We'll be talking about text to speech and optical character recognition. If we get to it, I'm not sure we will. We'll talk about Excel and AI generated captions. All of these things have also been recorded into short on-demand tutorials too. So if you have any follow-up questions after this, feel free to look at those. We've got them in the I think we'll send them out via email, but they'll also soon be in the faculty resource guide under the accessibility section. They're not there yet, but they will be soon. And are there any questions so far? Anything y'all are wondering about? How's it going, Vanessa? Excellent. I'll keep rolling on. If y'all have any questions, let me know. So we're going to start with accessibility checkers. Accessibility checkers are really handy, and they're pretty problematic too. No accessibility checker is going to be perfect. You need a human, and specifically you need a subject matter expert looking at things to make sure that they are meeting the educative purpose of that thing and that they are perceivable under multiple means. Accessibility checkers fall short in a lot of ways. Even the best accessibility checkers really only check the first couple pages of a document. They try to look at the different contrast elements, but they fall short in a lot of ways. They are a really good place to start. So whenever you're starting to get into accessibility, you're starting to build this into your workflow, it's an excellent place to get you started. It'll highlight some easy initial issues, and it'll often give you some steps for fixing those. I'm going to start by showing you Ally, but we're also going to talk about some known issues with Ally as well. So to get to Ally, if you just navigate down to Course Dashboard, then you can select Accessibility Report. And this will give me my Ally score. My Ally score is a percentage based on the accessibility of the content. It will show you a list of my content and all the potential issues with it. And we want y'all to know that the Ally score can be really helpful for knowing where you're at with a course, but you ultimately won't be judged by the percentage on this Ally score. There are a lot of issues related to how that score is generated, and we think it's a great tool and it's a great place to start, but getting 100 in Ally can be done by marking everything as decorative. There are a lot of ways that Ally isn't the best reflection of how accessible your course is. But it's still a really good place to start. So a couple known issues in Ally. We have an issue with ghost images. There's some images that are kind of behind the veil in the website that nobody has access to. Leah can't even get to it, and those images are showing up in Ally and affecting your score. You are not responsible for those, and we're actively working to fix that. But it is a known issue in Ally. So if there's an image that you didn't put in your course, you can't get to it, and it's like lowering your Ally score, don't worry about it. It's okay. There's an issue with Ally not correctly identifying alt text in images that have been added later. So if you go through and you're like, I did alt text in that image, you did. Ally just didn't recognize it. And fixes in Ally, we originally, I think, may have said to use Ally because it seems like a really helpful tool for fixing your images. We're not recommending that anymore because we found that fixes in Ally don't carry over whenever you re-import your course later. So use Ally as a starting resource, but go address the problems at their heart, wherever they are in your course. Address the images where they're at. And you can also there's an accessibility checker in Word and PowerPoint as well. I don't want to take time showing you that now. We went over it in an earlier PD session, and of course, if you want any further information on that, reach out to us. But it similarly will give you the requirements and things that are missing in a Word document or in your PowerPoint, and it can be really helpful for initially getting used to working this into your workflow, making sure you have headings, things of that nature. It also isn't perfect. You've got to kind of have your head wrapped around some of these accessibility requirements because you're ultimately going to be the human element that's assessing whether or not the AI is correct. You can also use Gemini for testing accessibility. I'll give you an example here. I've got an image here that is a table, but it's an image. So there's a difference between actual tables and images. This is like a picture of a table, so it's problematic because there's no metadata within here. You can actually take and input this, and I'm using Gemini here because we all have access to it, but you can use any large language model to do this. And the prompt that I'm using is, you're an accessibility expert, well versed in the WCAG 2.1 AA standards, specifically for academic settings. Please assess whether this document meets the WCAG 2.1 AA standards, and if not, how to revise it to bring it up to the standard. And it will give you a pretty good assessment of if it does or does not meet the standard. It says that this document appears to be a screenshot or image of text. This is a major accessibility barrier. Screen reader cannot interpret the text within the image. Down here, it will also start helping you revise that. It will actually pull the data out of that image and put it into an accessible table format that then you could put into Excel and identify table headers and do the other accessibility requirements for it. But you can get the data out of those images. And it's pretty good at it. It's not perfect. You've got to double check the numbers, the words, you got to make sure it's right. But if it's a clear picture, it's pretty good at it. Awesome. So now we're going to work on doing alt text generation with Gemini. So Gemini is Google's large language model. I want to mention that this can also be done in Teachermatic. I wanted to use Gemini today because I know everyone has pretty quick and easy access to it through your Blue Ridge account. And because Gemini, and I believe this is true, but I'm going to check with y'all shortly. I believe that you can now, in Gemini, our Blue Ridge Google Gemini setup has data protection, which addresses one of our earlier concerns with ethics and AI. The things that you put into Gemini should not be used for future training data, which then helps protect you. Let's say you draw a table out of a textbook. There are a variety of reasons why that's considered fair use. That table won't be used in any future AI models is just an extra layer of protection for us there. So that's one of the reasons that I do like Gemini, and one of the reasons we're going to be using it for today. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk through briefly how I would use Gemini for generating alt text and descriptive text. We'll talk about the difference between the two, and then I'm going to paste some directions on how to do it yourself into the chat window. And I want y'all to give it a try with an image or two in your own courses and or the website, just to see how it actually works for you, and we could talk about what you get back out of there. And for that, I'm looking for what it gets right, but I'm also looking for what it gets wrong. It's going to make a lot of issues, or it's going to have a lot of issues. There's going to be some things wrong, and it's really important to address that stuff too. So we're going to go to my course, and I've got here an image that I want to generate alt text for. I think the best workflow for doing this is to save the image, navigate to Gemini. I like to drag and drop the image just because it's already there. If you're good at file management, you can click this little plus sign, navigate to the file, and add it from there as well. One moment, I'm going to grab my prompt here. The prompt that I'm using is, you are an accessibility expert, well-versed in the WCAG 2.1 AA standards, specifically for academic settings. Please provide me with a 125 character or less alt text and a longer descriptive text for this image for a college level. And I'm going to give it a little bit more context here. I'm going to say for a college level art history class. No, I didn't do art. Always funny. I think everyone feels like they're a pretty good typist until you do it in front of people. And then it's always, I don't know what it is, but for a college level art history class. So I'm gonna run this. And while it's running, I want to talk about the difference between alt text and descriptive text. Alt text is going to be shorter. Most of the requirements for alt text are 125 characters or less, and that has to do with the HTML coding and size. So there's a major constraint with the size of alt text. And this is going to be, I'm not sure what it is in WordPress, but it's probably about that size. But for my courses, it's 125 characters or less. The descriptive text is going to be a longer, more involved text. Alt text is required for every image unless it's decorative. Descriptive text isn't always required, but that's where the subject matter expert comes in. What is the educative purpose of including the image in the first place? What do you want to get across about that image being in your course? Is it providing important context? Is there a metaphor there? Is there something, important? Is there something you're trying to get across with having that image in your course? And if so, that might need to be addressed in a descriptive text. It could be that, that short alt text doesn't quite get across what you needed, in which case you could do a descriptive text. Descriptive texts must be linked in some way. So in our My Courses, I can show you how to use a page. If you're doing a PowerPoint, I think you can do it in the notes, or you could do a link to descriptive text in a separate document. But descriptive text usually needs to be linked because it would clutter the page if it was immediately underneath it. So we've got our alt text and descriptive text here. You can take, one of the main things here is you need to make sure that this is correct. I'm just going to copy and paste it. I don't know that much about art history. I can't tell you if this is correct or not. If there was an art historian in the room, and if there is, please, correct the AI on this. But you would want to make sure after you paste this that it's correct. Does this get at the alt text that you want? I think it's a great place to start. I think once you get started, I think you can go, oh, well, actually, it's important that it's showing, that in this work, it's focusing more on the like context and less on the people. There might be something specific about this work that you're trying to get across in your class, and this is still going to give you a good place to start. So I'm going to go ahead and copy my alt text from here, navigate back to my course. We click up in the top right. This is a text media block and edit settings. I'm going to scroll down. Click once with a left click. It will bring up our little picture icon. Click the picture icon. In here, you want to make sure that this image is decorative only is deselected, and then you want to paste your alt text down in here in the bottom left area. And again, this might be a good time to edit that and just make sure that it's got what you want it to say in the alt text. I think it's always going to give you a good place to start. Not always. It's often going to give you a really good place to start, but you've got to make sure it aligns with your educative purpose for including the image in the first place, and that it's just factually correct. This is one of those places where it will really confidently say something that is not true. We're going to go back and draw on our descriptive text here. And I've included the descriptive text as a page immediately under the image. That way it doesn't clog up the course. It's not just like picture huge block of text, picture huge block of text. And I think the descriptive text is something that can help. A lot of these accessibility elements aren't just for students with disabilities, they help everyone. Having a little bit more description of why this picture is included in your class. Sometimes I think we feel like it's obvious that this relates to our course content to us, but it may not be as obvious to our students. So giving a good description of this image and how it relates to the course content can be helpful for everybody. I do want to point out before we do our group activity, and I will paste all the instructions for doing that into the chat so you have access to it. I do want to point out that it did a pretty good job with, of course, I'm not a mathematician, but that this process will also work with mathematical diagrams, which can be particularly tricky to try to turn over into descriptive text to be able to describe this. Even if you really understand it, it can kind of be complicated to pull that out into a descriptive text that gives you something meaningful. So it works with art history stuff, but it also works with mathematics. There's probably a large domain of things that it works with. I want to point out at least one error that I've gotten out of the AI. This is one of my favorite current artists. His name is C.T. Nelson. He does a lot of work in oil painting. So I ran it through the AI just to see what it would think about it. And what I'm getting out of here is that it gets a lot of things right. One, it's capturing a moment in the artist's studio because the painting is sitting on an easel. I mean, there's some like elements to this that it's getting correct. But it says the artist's name is Ryan Joseph, is visible on a small tag attached to the easel, identifying the creator of the artwork. There's a little bitty sticker, if you can see it up here, that says Ryan Joseph. I have a new conspiracy theory that Ryan Joseph, who does, a completely different style of art, and C.T. Nelson, maybe the same person, but I don't think they are. I think C.T. Nelson is Christopher Todd Nelson is a completely different person, and the AI has zoomed in on this sticker as an important piece of data that isn't correct. So you need to read these descriptive texts. There's been a lot of issues where people have just copy and pasted from an AI, not reading it, and that has caused a lot of problems. So make sure that this gets you started, but that it's not the be all end all. Looks like we've got a question here from Andy. I'm going to address that and then we'll do our group activity. Andy's question, in terms of ethics, as we have to have an AI statement in the syllabus, should we also include a statement at the bottom that indicates AI helped us create the statement? If, say, for example, we require students to communicate their use of AI, of it to us. That is an interesting question. Like, if we're going to bar our students from using AI, but we use it, do we have to be clear about that? I'm going to pass that question to Sarah. I don't know that I have a real firm grasp on an answer for that. Sarah, do you mind jumping in?
Happy to. And it is a great question. So this is something we actually took to Faculty Senate last year, about this time last year, and talked about how we would want to be more transparent around instructor use of AI. Right now, it is an option to include in the syllabus how instructors are using AI. As you think about your goals as an instructor and how you're trying to support students' understanding and navigation of AI, that would be a consideration for you to make personally. I certainly support transparency and I encourage people to be more transparent about how they're using AI, but it's a personal decision right now. Good question.
Yeah, that's a really good question. Thinking about how being clear with our own use of it, um, if we're gonna, allow students to use it or not. Awesome. I have pasted the step-by-step instructions into the chat for doing what I just did with alt text. I would like for you to try this on your own with one of the images in your course and just see if it works. So the Gemini website is gemini.google.com/app. And I believe that you will be able to use your at Blue Ridge login to get into that. If you run into any issues, please jump on and let me know. I'm going to start us a 2-minute timer so that you have a couple minutes to explore with this and not feel rushed. Whoever finishes first, please let me know and we'll look at what you got back out of it. Somebody give me a thumbs up. Does that sound good to everybody? Excellent. And if you need any help getting started on that, please reach out. I'll be glad to walk you through it.
I can't see the prompt.
The prompt, I got you. I'll repaste it so that it's easy access, and it should be the last thing in the chat. Let me know, Vanessa, if that didn't go through correctly.
Yeah, the last thing I see is Andy.
Same, actually.
Yeah.
Oh, really? Oh, I got it. Sweet, I messed up. Give me 1 second. I sent everything to Sarah instead. My bad. Sarah knows what to do.
I feel pretty special though, I'll tell you.
Yeah, you got it. You got a head start. I'll
Okay,
restart our
Sarah,
timer here
share
in
your
just a
screen
second.
and then you get to show it.
Yeah, lead the way. All right. And I'm pasting this in 3 separate things, so give me 1 second to get the last one in there, and it should all make sense. Cool. Awesome. And Vanessa, thank you for reaching out about that. Thank you for uh, uh, asking that. Awesome. I'm going to reset our timer, give us a couple minutes. Again, whoever finishes first and gets something interesting out of there, please let me know and we'll talk about it. Awesome. We're through with our 2 minutes. I'm going to do a check-in. If y'all aren't there yet, that's okay. Whenever whoever gets through this first. Oh, looks like we got something from Vanessa. Let's see. This image is a word cloud illustration. Office medical. Cool. So Vanessa, it looks like you put in a word cloud. I'm curious, did it get the word cloud correct? Like, did it get the words in there correct? And did it get all of them?
You're
I
muted.
was unmuted. No, sorry. It did not put all of them, but it did say these are terms like. So it has a disclosure that indicates this is not a comprehensive list.
Cool. I wonder what would happen. Would you mind trying communicating back with the AI saying, please give me a comprehensive list of all the words available in this image and see what it gives us?
Oh, it listed them as bullet points.
That's handy. Did it get all of them or most of them?
All of them.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's super handy. That's cool. Looks like Sarah got something out of here too. Looks like an okay alt text. Micrograph of a bacteria, tonsil cell, microscopic image of a bacterium, likely taken with a transmission electron microscope. And this is where a subject matter expert really comes in. I don't know. I mean, this sounds really right to me. I don't know if it's a tonsil cell, but it sounds correct. But this is really where being a subject matter expert comes in handy and knowing where you got the image from. Sarah, with where this image is from, does it seem likely that it is a tonsil cell? Do you know?
I pulled it from a biology 112 textbook lecture, and the text on the page actually said capsule, but there's no like description. I mean, it says tonsil cell like in the image itself. So yeah, I'm not sure. You
Cool.
guys didn't know I taught biology, did you?
Yeah, many talents. Awesome. Let's do at least one more. And Joseph, I didn't see you come in. Good to see you again. Does anybody else have one more they'd like to share with us and see what they got?
So I did one from one of my classes, but what I posted was its response to the "Are you sure?" And it is sure. It is hyper confident that, and I don't disagree. I just wanted to follow your process. And it was really interesting the way that it sort of reframed and restated like how it got there with the image. But it was accurate.
That's awesome. Yeah. That "are you sure" thing's really handy. And I've had it sometimes, often it will double down and say, yes, absolutely. But I've often had it go, you know what? Actually, that sounds wrong. Like, actually, let me follow a different process because it will analyze its own data in a way and it will use the context that it generated in that next response. So sometimes you can get some really interesting stuff out of that. Awesome. Before we move on, does anyone else want to share or do we have any questions and concerns? I want to make sure we fully addressed this AI and alt text thing because I think that's the most imminent thing that relates to our current work and accessibility in my courses. So I want to make sure we've done a thorough job of that before we move on. So does anybody else want to share or do we have any questions and concerns we want to talk about?
I just put one in the chat just to let you know that I thought it did a really good job. My picture was very simple, but there's words in the image. It's the one that's on the website right now, the big banner. So I wanted to see what it would do with the words, and it got it right. But as I put in chat, it didn't have the insight to be able to refer to the person as a student. So it just referred to the person as a construction worker. So That's sort of interesting. How would it know, I guess?
Yeah, right. Yeah, isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's, that's that subject matter expert side of it, making sure like it got, I don't know, would you say 80% of the way there, but you can
Yeah.
go in and change student, add in a few more things, make sure the
Mhm.
words are right, but
Yeah,
it kind of got you started. Would you say that's true?
I would. It was much better than I expected, actually.
Mm-hmm. And it's interesting too because there are AI. Now it's not people coding AI, it's AI coding AI. And so the development of AI is now following an exponential curve. So it's getting stronger all the time. We may or may not reach a wall of sorts in the functionality of AI. There's, next kind of bridge is this strong general AI possibility. We may end up running into a little bit of a wall there. We may not, but we may. But either way, over the next little bit, in terms of the way we're using this now, it's likely to just get better at it, which is going to be cool. So as you use this over the next couple of years, it's probably going to trend towards getting a little bit stronger, which is cool. Are there any questions related to this or concerns? Is there anything y'all are worried about that comes up with doing this? Feeling good? Awesome. I'm going to move on because I want to show y'all a couple of other tools that could be helpful for you. And I'm going to go through these pretty quickly, just showing you that they exist. If you want to learn how to use them, we have follow-up on-demand training that has all the information for being able to get access to them. This one is not specifically AI, but I think it's really helpful. So it's a contrast checker, and this is from WebAIM, and you can actually just select the WebAIM. You can just go to WebAIM and search bookmarklet, and it should be the first result. To install it, it's super simple. You click this and drag it up to your bookmark and drop it. What that will do is it will give you this little pop-up window. You can do it on any web page. You just select the little bookmarklet, and then I can select a color, and then I can select the eyedropper tool here. Now my background is correct, it's white. This text is not exactly black. I've made it kind of a gray color, so I want to make sure that the contrast is going to be good enough based on the WCAG standards. And this actually analyzes it compared to the WCAG standards and will give you the aspect ratio, or the contrast ratio. I'm not sure how you say that. It will give you the contrast and tell you whether it passes or not. And it will tell you for normal text, large text, or non-text elements, such as little, pictures or something. So there's going to be some text that would work as large text, like if you were doing a huge header and it was really big, but wouldn't work as a normal text. So this is just a really helpful, easy pop-up, quick check little tool that you can use. Speech to text conversion. This is something that I have definitely benefited from. When I was in college, I had a 45-minute commute, and so I used to turn my PDFs into audio so that I could listen to them, because I was working full time and doing two master's degrees, and I just had to, like find more time somewhere. And so I used to turn my PDFs into audio, and there's some research that supports that reading it is better, and I think that's true, but at least listening to it's better than not engaging with the material at all. So in order to use a text-to-speech, there are a couple ways to do it. If you want to test out your own Word documents, you can go into your document, navigate to review, and then navigate to read aloud. And I'll play it. I'll see if we'll be able to hear it or not.
Best practices for creating accessible Word documents. 1. Use proper headings.
Were y'all able to hear that at least a little bit? Cool. So the read
Headings help
aloud.
structure your document
Oh.
and improve navigation for.
Sorry. The read aloud feature is really handy, and it can help you test to make sure that your text is actually reading out correctly. You can change the speed of read aloud to increase it, and you can also change the voice. Read aloud is also how things like NVDA and JAWS actually work. That's the ability to turn a text into speech, and in order to do that, it has to have some metadata tied to that text, which isn't present when it's just an image. In order to do that, you have to run an optical character recognition on it. I'm going to show you really quickly how we can do that. You should have access to OneNote. OneNote is the only way that I found in the Microsoft universe to be able to do this. This is something you can do. Most people think you can only do this with Acrobat, but there are some other ways of doing it, and this is one of them. So if I take a problematic PDF, let's say we'll do this one here. You want to do insert printout. Let it think about it for a moment. And here I've got a problematic PDF. I know we've probably all spent, too much time reading these books smushed on copiers type PDF. These are just images. And one way you can check is whenever you try to scroll, whenever you try to click and move down the page on them, it doesn't select. Like on a PDF, you'll see it'll do that weird kind of jaggedy blue line down it. That means the metadata is available. If you try that and it doesn't work, that means it's more likely that it's a picture instead of actual metadata. So what you can do after you paste that into OneNote, you can right click and you can click copy text from all pages in the printout. And then if you navigate to a Word document, we'll just do it at the bottom of this one. You can paste that and it will pull all the text that it's able to out of that. Now, there's still some steps you're going to have to follow to fully remedy something like this. This PDF is particularly bad, so there's probably missing words. There's probably some tables I need to address. Most of the modern PDFs that you're pulling off of JSTOR, even if most of them already are OCR'd, but if they're not, they're probably laid out in a really clean fashion, in which case this process will work infinitely better. But if you have a super old PDF that was smushed on a copier that you just love, it's like the best one, it just really gets at a point that you love and you can't find a modern version of it, this is a way that you can remedy the PDF and at least get the data back out of it to give you something to work with. And you can follow up with the PD sessions on how to do accessible Word documents because there's some other elements to making that accessible. But this will at least get you the wording so you don't have to retype it. See, I'm going to check on our time. We got like 10 minutes. Cool. I'm going to I wanted to mention too, you can also do this in Gemini. I'm not going to show it to you, but if you have a problematic PDF, you can put it into Gemini. There's an issue that you run into though with length in Gemini. Earlier we talked about how it's a series of tokens that it uses. Tokens are words or parts of words. There's a context window within large language models. The more expensive, the bigger the context window, the cheaper, the smaller the context window. The free version is not going to have a very long context window, meaning that the data you put into it and the data it's able to pull out of that and make something happen with is going to be limited by the number of tokens that it can process. And so if you're trying to do a 100-page PDF or something, it's not going to do that correctly. And I find that it'll try, but at some point after the limitation of its tokens, it will start just making things up. So you have to be really careful with your context window, like the size of documents you're putting into large language models, specifically on the free version of it. The paid versions have much larger context windows, but I wanted to mention that that is also possible. So with Excel, I'm going to show you, we kind of already addressed it earlier. Here is Gemini. You can take an Excel image. So we'll do this guy here, test table. This is the one that we looked at earlier. Okay. I didn't give it proper context for this one. It probably would do better if I did that, but this will at least extract the data. You can then, Gemini is nice because you can open it directly into Sheets. You can also copy and paste this over into Excel. Again, there's some more stuff you're going to need to do with this to make it accessible. You need to identify the headings, the header row of the table. There's some other things you have to do, but this will at least get you the data back out of that image. Is pretty good at it. Like the optical character recognition in large language models is pretty strong. You got to make sure that it's right. You got to read through it, make sure the numbers add up. But it's pretty shockingly good at it. And then we've got like 10 minutes left. I'm going to save my AI generated captions just because I want to spend a little bit of time asking some questions. If we don't have any, then I could show you the AI generated captions thing. But I just want us to have a little bit of time for questions or concerns, anything you're wondering about. I want us to have a few minutes to address those. So, what questions do y'all have so far? Oh, it looks like Vanessa, will you show how to bring that into Excel? Yeah, sure. From here, from Gemini, I would probably do export to sheets. Give it a moment to think about it. Cool. Open in sheets, file, and then download as Microsoft Excel. I think from Gemini, that's the cleanest way. If I was using ChatGPT, I would probably, it's interesting because each large language model has its own set of strengths. ChatGPT, I found, is not quite as good at working with tables. Microsoft's is pretty good at it because of Excel. Google Sheets seems to be, or Google Gemini seems to be pretty good at it because of Sheets. ChatGPT can do it, but it's not quite the strongest at extracting data or putting it into a table or working with data in a table. So that's the way that I would do it is just if I use Gemini, then extract to sheets, and then you've got this data that you can download. Did that answer your question, Vanessa? Cool. What other questions we got? Questions or concerns? I'm curious if there are any areas that you think AI may still fall short in this. We had a couple issues earlier. We've got these problems with it being too confident. I'm curious if there's any specific subject matter or if there are any situations where you think that AI may fall short.
Jean just mentions
Yes,
one in the chat.
Yeah, I've actually put just simple numbers to add up into ChatGPT and they were wrong.
Mhm.
So I was wondering
Sure.
if you could recommend math, something for doing math.
For sure. There are a couple math specific ones, and I think that math gets at an essential problem with the thing that makes large language models good is that autocomplete and tokenization process. It's not logical in the way that we think of logic. It's predicting the most likely thing to follow, not necessarily doing the logical thing. And so there are some specific models that are better at math. And it's usually in the paid versions at this point because those are the more logic-based ones. But ChatGPT's o1 and o3 both are logic-specific models. So you won't get as creative a writing out of them, but they're much better at analyzing the interrelation of specific tokens instead of just being a long autocomplete system. Those will actually look at relationships between tokens a little bit more deeply. Also, following up and asking the "Are you sure?" question whenever it's giving you something like that can be a good way to do it. But there's a bunch of different like if you ask ChatGPT, there are a bunch of different specific questions you can ask it, like how many letters are in the word apple, that it will pretty consistently get wrong in a weird way. So I think the best way to do it now, it's unfortunate, but it's that logical processing is in the more expensive models at the moment. Um, but that "Are you sure?" question may help solve it at the level that it's currently at. Did that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, for sure. And you can actually, there's something I read recently. Math AI. Oh, one of the issues that's going to happen, I think, soon with the paid versions of ChatGPT, it looks like 5 is going to, instead of selecting which model you want to use, it's going to select which model it should use, which causes a lot of issues because if you're trying to get it to do a complex math problem, sometimes it's hard to get it to switch. It's kind of that pizza taco issue again. It's kind of hard to get it to switch back to focusing on pizza and doing a logical process other than a more creative kind of language-based process. So I'm curious, what do y'all think? Are there any areas where AI may fall short or may not be able to work in this? Are there any subject areas And math is one of them. Are there any other ones y'all can think of?
I haven't come into any trouble so far. I've really just started using it in my courses or like to help me generate things or do anything. But I use a lot of screenshot, like I'll take a screenshot and then put it into my courses and then I'll add the alt text. Is there any way, like when I do a screenshot and then I'll save it in my folder, my course folder or whatever, and then I'll use it again later. Is there a way to, because it saves it, I think it as, what is this? Let me make sure I'm saying this the right way. It, like I save them as a PNG file. Is there a way to add alt text to that so that when I then put it into my course, it already has it? Because I haven't figured out a way to do that. Should I be
That's a good
saving
question.
my screenshots as a different type of file?
That's a good question. I don't know. I'll have to look into that and get back to you. It should be theoretically possible, like if you did it should be theoretically possible that you should be able to embed in the metadata alt text. I don't know that it's going to, I don't know that my courses is able to pull that information and put it in the place that it needs, but I will spend a little bit of time on that and I'll make it, if I can get it to work, I'll make a tutorial about how to do it and figure out a software that works for you. But
Yeah, I like
short
to use the
answer,
snipping tool because I'll use like a little piece of it and then I'll put it in there and it comes in as an image and then I have to go in there and add the alt text. But if it was already there, that would be great because I could just add the alt text when I do the snip.
yeah,
Well,
totally.
fresh on my mind, do it right then before and then add them all later.
Uh-huh. Yeah,
But I
that's a
haven't.
good idea. So how to include that metadata in early. I'll have to play around with that and see if I can get it to work to see
Okay.
if my courses can pull on that specific metadata.
Okay. Or if there's even a way to do that. Because like I say, right now I just do a lot of snipping. I love the snipping tool. It's my favorite.
Yeah, for sure. Super handy. That's awesome.
My
Um,
AI overview of
mhm.
this question, Vanessa, says that it's pretty hard to do unless you're working in Adobe. But Wes, if there's a way to do it, Wes will figure it out. So
Right.
stay tuned. You've given him a new challenge.
Yeah, for sure. I'll try to figure it out, and I'll figure it out with if I can figure it out, I'll figure out how to do it with the tools that are available to you. Not having to do, pay for some expensive software. There's so many of these tools do, the Microsoft OneNote thing. It's not real clear that that's what you're supposed to use to OCR a document, but it does it really well. So I'll figure if I can figure out a way, I'll figure out a way with tools that you have available to you already.
Thanks.
Y'all, it
Yeah.
is 10:59, so we're going to need to wrap up. I want to thank Wes and all of you for being on the call today. We really appreciate your interest and hope that you follow up with us if you have questions. I'm going to be sending you a link to the eval along with links to those short tutorials that Wes made so that if you want to check out any of those other quick processes that he mentioned, you can do so. Hope you have a wonderful rest of your day and a good spring break. Thank you.
Thank y'all all for coming. I really appreciate you.